Alrighty, guys, I went a perfect 5-0 my personal plays on my website yesterday. And the only way you could have accessed every one of those winners is to be a board member on that site at patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, board members get access to every single personal play, every single package, every single day for the next 30 days. If you sign up here today, the math works out to be just $1.66 a day. I'll tell you what, at an average of 4 to 6 plays a day, you're looking at roughly just 33 cents per play, give or take. Now, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total. What I do on patreon.com/BrockPage is I actually share with you which one of these free picks on these videos that I actually have my personal action on. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to take a look at Minnesota at Ohio State, 6:30 p.m. East. The Buckeyes are -14, totals 136.5. The Buckeyes are one of the better scoring teams in the nation. They're averaging 80 points a game, and they're also a top 20 field goal shooting team. Bryce Sensabaugh scores a team-high 16 points a game. He's also drilling 43% of his long balls. Meanwhile, Bruce Thornton is drilling nearly 47% of his three-pointers himself. They're facing a Minnesota squad who lost 7 out of their last 9. And they're definitely not built for a track meet offensively. These guys score only 64 points a game, and they're shooting a pitiful 59% from the foul line. Now, injury-wise, Zed Key is questionable for the Buckeyes. He's a big rebounder, so keep an eye on his status. When it comes to the total, Ohio State saw unders against the likes of Northwestern and Rutgers. Meanwhile, Minnesota saw 4 out of their last 5 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ohio State -14, under 136.5. Next game, it is going to be Michigan taking on Iowa, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Iowa's -5, totals 155. Now, the Hawkeyes are a top 25 scoring team, and they're also amongst the best in the Big Ten in offensive boards. Chris Murray's grabbing nearly double-digit rebounds a night. He's also the team's leading scorer with 20 points a game. Now, Philip Rebraca averages 14.5 points a night himself. He's also grabbing nearly double-digit boards. Now, they're facing a Michigan team who lost 3 out of their last 5, and they certainly have a tough time grabbing defensive boards. They're actually toward the bottom of the Big Ten in defensive rebounding per game. When it comes to when it comes to offensive production, the Wolverines have had their issues from the foul line. These guys are making only 68% of their free throws. Now, injury-wise, Ogundele is still banged up a little bit for Iowa. Keep an eye on his status. When it comes to the total, Iowa saw their last 3 straight get over the total, 6-1 of the over in their last 7. Meanwhile, Michigan saw overs against the likes of Penn State, UNC, and Minnesota. I'm going to lean toward Iowa -5, over 155. Next game, it is going to be Colorado at USC, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. USC's the 3.5-point favorite. USC -3.5, total 141 and a hook. Now, the Trojans are on a 2-game skid, and they've certainly had their issues covering the point spread. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 8. And they've been little threat shooting the 3 ball. These guys are making just 31% of their shots from beyond the arc this year. When it comes to defensive play, the Trojans are toward the bottom half of the conference in defensive boards. Now, they're facing a Colorado team on the other side who's playing some really good basketball right now. The Buffs got the W in 7 out of their last 8, and they're doing a nice job grabbing offensive boards. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, the Buffs are averaging 75 points a game. KJ Simpson scoring over 17.5 points a night, along with 4 boards, 3 assists. Meanwhile, Tristan Da Silva scoring over 15 points a game himself. Now, injury-wise, Gabadon is questionable for Colorado. IUPUI is questionable for USC. When it comes to the total, 6 out of USC's last 10 did stay under the number. Meanwhile, Colorado saw unders against the likes of Oregon State, Oregon, and Washington. I'm going to lean toward Colorado +3.5, under 141 and a hook. Next ball game, it is going to be Arizona State taking on Oregon, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. The Oregon Ducks are -5.5, totals 136. And even though they are favored by a couple of buckets, the Ducks have had a tough time covering the point spread recently. These guys failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6. When it comes to offensive production, the Ducks really don't score a whole lot. They're averaging only 68 points a game, and they're making just 29% of their three-pointers. Now, even more bad news here for Oregon backers. They're facing a Sun Devil team who's really tough to score against. They're actually limiting their opponents to just 37% shooting from the field. They're actually in the top 10 in the nation in that defensive field goal percentage category. When it comes to the scoring, DJ Horn scoring 12 points a game along with 4 boards, couple assists. Meanwhile, Devin Cambridge is making nearly 40% of his three-pointers. Now, total-wise, the Sun Devils saw unders against the likes of Arizona, Stanford, and Colorado. Meanwhile, Oregon saw 5 out of their last 9 stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Arizona State plus 5.5, under 136. And I think this is our next and final breakdown for the video. It is going to be Gonzaga at BYU, 9:30 Eastern tip-off. Gonzaga's -6, totals 153. Now, the red-hot Gonzaga Bulldogs won their last 9 straight, and they have the highest offensive field goal percentage in the country. Actually, this isn't our final breakdown. We got one more after this. But anyway, Gonzaga, winners of their last 9 straight, highest offensive field goal percentage in the country. And no real surprise, the Zags are scoring 86 points a night. 86 points a night. They're in the top 5 in that category in the nation. Now, Drew Timme, he makes over 61% of his attempts from the field. He's also leading the team in points. The senior is 21.8 points a night, ranks 9th in the nation in points per game. Meanwhile, Julian Strother knocks down 43% of his shots from downtown. They're facing a BYU team who failed to cover against the likes of Loyola Marymount, Weber State, and Utah Valley. When it comes to offensive production, the Cougs really haven't been a major threat shooting the long ball. These guys are making only 32% of their three-pointers. Now, total-wise, BYU did see overs against the likes of Lindenwood and Creighton. Meanwhile, Gonzaga went 4-2 to the over in their last 6 qualifying ball games. I'm going to lean toward Gonzaga -6 over 153. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the video. Some reason not on our big screen behind me, but it is going to be Utah at UCLA, 11 o'clock Eastern start time. UCLA's -11.5, totals 135 and a hook. And even though Utah's been real good on the other side, it's actually UCLA who's been real tough to score against this year. They're allowing only 60 points a game, and they're in the top 25 in guarding the three-pointer. Now, they're limiting their competition to just 28% shooting from three-land. When it comes to offensive production, Jaime Jaquez leads the team in scoring with nearly 17 points a night. Now, Devin Singleton's knocking down almost 50% of his three-pointers himself. They're facing a Utah team who lost 3 out of their last 6. Losses to the likes of Oregon, TCU, and BYU. When it comes to offensive production, the Utes were held to just 67 points a game during that 6-game stretch I just mentioned. Now, total-wise, Utah saw unders against the likes of Cal and BYU recently. Meanwhile, UCLA saw their last 5 straight stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward UCLA -11.5, under 135 and a hook. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. Appalachian State -3, under 128. Stetson +1, under 133. Ohio State -14, under 136.5. And one final reminder, guys, I won a perfect 5-0 my 5 personal plays on my website yesterday. And the only way you could have accessed all of those plays is to be a board member on patreon.com/BrockPage. Give me Iowa -5, over 155. North Alabama +18, under 134. Kennesaw State -3.5, over 127. North Florida +2, over 141. Florida Gulf Coast -2, under 144.5. Youngstown State -1, over 155. Robert Morris +6, under 142. IUPUI +16, under 136. Drexel -5 under 126. Longwood -2 over 141.5. Troy -2 over 132. Old Dominion -7 over 138. Louisiana -8 over 142. Texas State -3.5 under 120 and a hook. James Madison -2.5 over 140 and a hook. Wright State -9.5 over 143. Northern Kentucky +1.5 under 131. St. Thomas -2 over 135.5. Oral Roberts -15 over 157. Nebraska Omaha -4 under 137.5. Texas A&M Commerce -4 over 148. LAMAR +11 over 143.5. Lindenwood +11 over 145. New Orleans -2.5 under 145. Texas A&M Corpus Christi -8 over 151. Morehead -2 over 134. Eastern Illinois -7 under 137. South Indiana -6 over 154. Montana -3 under 134.5. Montana State -11 over 133. Denver +2 under 144. Tennessee State -3 over 155. Southern Miss +9 over 147. Loyola Marymount +15 under 129. Grand Canyon -11 over 126. Sam Houston State -1.5 over 141 and a hook. Northwestern State -8 under 139.5. Lipscomb -1.5 under 136. Colorado +3.5 under 141 and a hook. Arizona State +5.5 under 136. Gonzaga -6 over 153. San Diego -2.5 over 157 and a hook. Seattle -4 over 142. Cal Poly +10 under 137.5. Sacramento State -4 over 144. Portland State -6 under 149. San Francisco -2 over 148.5. Washington -2 over 136. UCLA -11.5 under 135 and a hook. With my next and final free pick, I'm going to lean toward Arizona -15 over 143.